Welcome to the Servants of Grace podcast hosted by Dave Jenkins. Our podcast exists to provide trustworthy expository messages through the Bible and faithful answers to your theology questions. Now, for today's episode, let's join our host, Dave Jenkins.
Well, welcome back to the Servants of Grace theology segment. My name is Dave, and I'm the host for this show. And on today's episode, a listener writes in and asks a great question. And the question is, what is divine immutability? Well, if you have studied history, or even more specifically Western philosophy, you're most likely familiar with Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, or any of the great Greek philosophers. While the ideas of these men, they continue to be taught in colleges and even universities today, several thinkers have developed systems of thought before them. One of them is Heraclitus. Heraclitus is well known for his statement, man cannot step into the same river twice. As the water flows, change occurs, even if it's imperceptible to us. The riverbank slowly erodes, the molecules of the water advance, or if nothing else, a person is older the next time he steps in the river, even if it occurs only seconds later. Heraclitus, in his statement, he's pointing out that change is a constant for us. Scientists tell us that a person's DNA remains the same throughout their whole life. But we all know that we all age every day over time. Malachi 3:6 tells us that while creatures change, such change doesn't apply to the Lord. That's because the Lord's character is unchanging. That means that he is immutable. The power of God cannot be diminished. It cannot be deterred. The Lord never forgets. He never learns. He cannot be anything other than perfectly holy. The unchanging nature of God testifies that the Lord is at work in creation, and that the unchanging righteousness of God results in his wrath towards the unrepentant. The unchanging love of God leads the Lord to call out his people when they sin. In fact, Jonathan Edwards once said that the unchangeability of God provokes sinners to rebellion. After all, the world hates the Lord because it knows his unchanging character guarantees he cannot overlook nor forget man's rebellion. The unchanging nature of God for the Christian is the rock upon which they stand in every situation and in all of life. Well, the Bible teaches this about God not changing. Malachi 3:6 tells us that the Lord cannot change because he cannot improve on absolute perfection or decline in his eternally fixed nature. His person does not change, and this is what Malachi 3:6 says, "For I, the Lord, do not change." His plans don't change. Psalm 33:11 says, "The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations." His purposes, the purposes of God, do not change. Hebrews 6:17 says, and so when God desired to show more convincingly the unchangeable character of his purpose, he guaranteed it with an oath. God does not change his mind. 1 Samuel 15:29 says, "The glory of Israel will not lie or have regret, for he is not a man that he should not have regret." His word never changes. Isaiah 31:1-2, the Holy One of Israel does not call back his words. His calling never changes. Romans 11:29, Hebrews 13:8, and James 1:17 make it very clear that the gift and the callings of God are irrevocable. There are absolutely no changes in God, no variations, no surprises. Psalm 102:27 declares. God cannot change. His word cannot change. His purposes cannot change. His truth is the same yesterday, today, and forever because he is the truth. Now, the immutability of God challenges us because it means that the sovereignty of God over us is total and it's absolute. Stephen Charnock shows how the immutability of God means that his knowledge and his will are the cause of everything. What this means is that the Lord cannot grow in knowledge. He is the only wise. He all is naked before him. In fact, Stephen Charnock says, God doth know creatures because they are, but they are because he knows them. Nothing in all the world or into eternity lies outside of the unchanging knowledge of the Lord. Rather than unsettling you, dear Christian, the immutability of God should be a great comfort to you, since we know and we have received the grace of God in the person and the work of Christ. If you're anything like me, you may nod with Charnock in approval when he says the nearer we come to God, the more stability we should have in ourselves. We need the divine help of the Lord, and the immutability of God is that rock upon which all the promises of God find their foundation. I want to plead with you, dear Christian. This is a very important doctrine to meditate on, to study. That is, to study the unchanging nature of God taught in the Word of God. Even the most faithful Christian among us doesn't always live up to their maturity. And yet the Lord is always faithful. He's always true. He's always reliable. Every Christian can always trust the character of God. So please take some time today, dear Christian, to think of some ways in which the grace of God has been at work in your life. And then thank Him, and then tell others of the wonderful, unchanging character of our God revealed in the Scriptures that testify of Christ alone. Well, I want to thank you for listening or watching this episode of the Servants of Grace Theology segment. Until next time, may the Lord richly bless you and keep you.
Thank you for listening to the Servants of Grace podcast today. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, leave a rating on the app, and share our episode with your friends and family. If you'd like to, you can follow us on Instagram at Servants of Grace, on Twitter at Servants of Grace, or by searching Servants of Grace on Facebook. You can also find this podcast on the front page of our website at servantsofgrace.org.